good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. I'm not sure what your time zone is. Sorry, I will just mute. So, good evening and welcome to our second episode of Outward Bound's Talks with Outward Bound. Today is a very special day. It's other than it being the 10th of October, it is also the Mental Health Day, which is globally raised awareness on this day all over the world. Speakers from different backgrounds, advocates of mental health come up and speak together on what we can do on moving forward. In some countries, it is still a taboo. In other countries, we're already taking steps forward and looking at how to increase positive mental health through, for example, the outdoors. So we've got a number of speakers today, all from different backgrounds, globally as well as nationally. We've got, just try and share the screen. Can everybody see the screen? So, a little bit of a welcome. So the relevance of Mental Health Day, like I said, it's an opportunity for stakeholders from all over the world to talk about mental health issues, about their work and what they are doing to make it a positive day for a lot of people around the world who are struggling with mental health. So today we've got our speakers, Dr. Saida Basma Al-Said, the owner of Whispers of Serenity Clinic over here in Oman, the first of its kind over here in Oman. And we've got Joe Roberts, the CEO of Wilderness Foundation, joining us from the UK. Hi, Joe. She was also with us over here in Oman, working very closely with us in Outward Bound. But what she does basically is work with young people in the outdoors, promoting positive mental health using the outdoors. We've got Yother El-Rawahi, a very strong story of her own on her own stories of resilience and how she had not only being the owner or founder of the Oman Cancer Association, but also a 4-time cancer survivor. So she will share her personal story of how she overcame this. And we have finally our Ed Parker from the CEO of Walking with the Wounded. Walking with the Wounded is a charity, a UK-based charity, working with veterans, taking them into the outdoors. Sorry, we just have to mute somebody here. So Edward Parker works with Walking with the Wounded, taking veterans into the outdoors, and again, using the outdoors as a healing method. So we'll hear more about each one of them and what they bring to the table today. But before we do that, let's get a little bit of an icebreaker. Let's see if everybody can get involved in this. So we're admitting one more people. So what we're going to do is a little bit of a game to get everybody in the right mindset and start talking about mental health. Taboo is the name of the game. Taboo is unfortunately also how the topic of mental health is seen in a lot of places. So what we're going to do is I will share, and I'll need a volunteer. So I'll share a word with this volunteer. This volunteer will go online with their camera, unmute their microphone, and would have to, within a certain time, explain to everybody what this word is, of course, without saying the word itself. So, who would be my first guinea pig? You can unmute or raise your hand if you would like to be the first.
I'm happy to.
Who do we have here?
I can be a guinea pig.
Brilliant. We've got a guinea pig. Okay. So I will just send you a message.
Mm-hmm. On the chat?
On the chat. Open your private chat.
Oh gosh, okay.
And the word that you have to guess, or make everybody guess, is...
I haven't seen it yet. Has it come yet or not?
There you go.
Okay. Oh my goodness, I've got to act this out or do something with that.
You cannot say the word, and you cannot say these words as well.
Okay. Right. So I'm just thinking, right. Okay. Do I need to go now?
Go.
Oh my goodness. I usually love these games. This is a hard one. Okay. So it's the same substance. It's the same feeling when you touch something like this or something like that. It's not soft. It's okay. And it's the same thing that goes on the sea, but it doesn't need sails. And then if you're feeling it, it's when the weight of the world is upon you and you're deprived of many things and you don't, there's not much softness around you and there's not much to help you get through life.
It's not anxiety, Maha. Keep going.
It's a feeling like you'll talk about a lot of people live in the circumstances of this, where they've often got poverty or disadvantage, or they've not been allowed to be given many opportunities, and their life is extremely something. It's got a weight on it, and it feels like it's the substance is not soft. It's actually very and if you were playing charades, it would be two words. One has a feeling that's not soft, it's the opposite of soft. And if it's like this, the second word is a big boat that goes on the sea, but without sails. Yes.
There you go. Brilliant.
Somebody got it. Thank you.
That was a hard one to start with. I was sweating here for you. I thought no one's going to get it. Good effort. Good effort. Okay, we need another volunteer. Let's have a couple more of these. I'll make it easier this time, I promise. Who is our volunteer? Just put it in the chat if you want volunteer. I think it should be Amal since she got it. Any volunteers, or should I pick one? You don't have to have your video on if you're not comfortable. Just go with your audio. It also works. No more? Okay, here, I will go one. Okay, so let's just encourage people here. This is how you are when you are wanting to cry and you are the opposite of up. You are not feeling, I couldn't say feeling. All right, Besma, your go then. I saw that thumbs down. Unmute.
I've been trying not to get excited because I love this game, but this has been such a, it's interesting. I'd just love to watch today, actually. Okay. I find it quite interesting. Unless nobody else wants to go, I'm ready.
Let's see. We'll give it, otherwise I'll go for another one, but I'll try not to mess up this time. Anyone else wants to try?
I'll try it if nobody else wants to, but come on, guys.
The answer was sad, by the way. I wasn't allowed to say feeling either, and I said feeling.
Why didn't you say the opposite of happy?
I did. That was the first thing I said.
Ah, okay.
All right, your go, Basma. I tag you.
Okay, I have to check. So I'm quite far from my screen. Let me just read it.
You can't
Oh,
say
you tagged me.
Yes, I'm typing it to you.
Where do I find it?
On your private chat.
My private chat. Where would that be? Do I go? Okay. Okay. Oh,
these are the words you can't say.
it's so difficult. Oh, what can't I say? Wait, wait a minute. Just check. What can't I say? Okay. God. Those are the words I can't say, right?
Those are the words you can't say.
Okay, wait. First word. Okay, first word. Okay.
Is it charades? He can
talk.
talk. You can talk.
I can talk. Oh God, it's the other one. It's not charades. So I can say everything, but
you can say anything but those three words.
It's been a long day, guys. You don't want to know. Okay, so it's to do with today. Oh, okay. Sorry. My job. It sounds like a cow mewing. Moo. Starts with that letter, moo, and it's to do with what we're doing, and it's very important to me and to everyone here. This thing that people do every October. They do it every October. One something in October, they do this. One something in October, it's usually, yes!
Mental Health Day, that's it.
I was like, I forgot it wasn't this game, it was this game.
Well, brilliant, thank you. That brings us right to our topic. I think we've got enough people in. We can get started. So, to get started, we've got Sayyida Basma Zaid, so you don't need to unmute yourself just yet. But before she starts, I will tell you a little bit about herself. She is the founder of Whispers of Serenity Clinic. This is the first specialized clinic of its sort dealing with mental health and well-being in Muscat. She's also a mental health consultant and physiotherapist. She's had over 20 years of experience in this. Dealing with patients of a wide array of disorders, but also touching on taboo subjects such as abuse and eating disorders. So Dr. Basma comes to us with a very varied background on mental health, specifically in Oman. So I think a perfect candidate to get us started on this topic. The ground is yours, ma'am. So I think let's make this, I would like to start with let's keep it general. What is to you the definition of mental health? I mean, it's a very varied topic, and you yourself have worked with a number of cases in all different backgrounds. It is taboo. So what is it before we start going into anything else, please?
So really talking about what mental health is, as you said, it's vast, it's very big. I'm going to make it really easy. It's basically balancing your feelings. If I was to do that, to say that, to make it more easy and to make it more, we all go through it. So it's a way of learning how to balance your feelings. And when it's unbalanced, then you go through lots of mental issues that you would go through. So I would say it that way because there's so much to talk about it when it comes to mental health. It's something we all go through. As much as people say it's a taboo, I don't see it as much as a taboo anymore like before. There will be a percentage of it that will always be a taboo because it's a very, very secret thing to a person. You know, when you go through something mental health, it's very hard for you to accept it. So there's a little bit that will always be a taboo, but it's not like before. in our region, it's not like before. So I can't even imagine everywhere else, of course. And this is something I always say, things that happen here happen abroad as well. In the end, we're all humans. We all go through the same thing. So a lot of times people will tell me, oh, abroad it's different and here it's different. I tell you from experience, it isn't. Because simply we're all humans and we all go through things. So people even abroad have a bit of taboo in it, as we do have here.
So you say mental health, we all go through it. And I think specifically more so now, it has been a topic that is recurring more and more so with people being indoors, people being unsure about their future, and with COVID and the fear of that, living with that every day. So could you tell us a little bit more about, did you face that there was a change in this in Oman, and how so?
Definitely. So I like to start by saying something, actually. These days I've tried to do more journaling, and I have a reason why I'm doing that, and I'll tell you guys why. So today is 10/10/2020. I'm going to call it COVID time. We don't know how life is going to be, but I want us to remember this as COVID time. Now, I know a lot of people have put a lot of negativity into COVID time, but you know, when you watch a movie or you read a book and they say in the time of this, that, and the other, then you reflect. I think this time it's actually a good time for us to reflect. And I hope, inshallah, we move on to whatever we're going to move on to. And when we reflect, we take what we've learned from this. So there is no doubt that at these times, things have been difficult. At these times, things haven't been the norm. We did not see it coming, as they say, okay? We didn't see that at sometimes we'll be doing conferences like this. We'll be facing a screen. We didn't see that when we go to work, we will have fear of contracting something. We didn't see that our kids are going to be distant learning and they don't know where their future is going. We don't know where we're going. We didn't see that the economy will be this bad. So there's a lot of things that have hit us like a truck. It's like slam. Now what do we do? Because we actually didn't have any plan before. So when people talk about, oh, now there's more issues in mental health, there's more things going on, as we've seen through years and years before, in any catastrophe or any emergency that happens, after that, of course, there's a lot of avalanche of mental health problems, as is going to be now in COVID-19. We're going to have a lot of PTSD, maybe people, not maybe, people with OCD, people with depression, with anxiety. It's become more because they had already been going through something before COVID, and now it's actually just become enhanced or become even more. So it wasn't a shock when WHO thought, you know what, this year is going to be about investing in mental health. And what better thing to invest in your mental health? So this taboo topic that everybody sees as a taboo is actually now going to be invested in. We should have, of course, invested in it before, but maybe it was an eye-opener for us to do it right now. So when people say, you know, Basma, it doesn't matter, everything is bad and life is bad, I'm not disagreeing. It's not the norm. It is not normal for me to go out and see people in mosques. It is not normal for me, before I come out of the car, I feel like I'm going to rob a bank. I'm putting on my mask, I'm putting on my gloves, and then you open the door and you send. It's a whole long process, and it's not normal. But this is how it is. You have the choice. Do you want to go and, you know, be upset and be depressed and not deal with it? Or do you want to try as much as we can to adapt? Also, lockdown, and then no more lockdown, and then lockdown again, and then, oh my God, there's cases, and okay, maybe now we're better, but where's the vaccine? But what about this vaccine? What, maybe we shouldn't take it. It's a lot. It's a lot to deal with. And I really recommend that we don't deal with all of it. We can't. As much as we're trying, it is difficult. And the more we try, the more it will affect us mentally. Now, when we talk about easy words, today I was talking about an easy topic, being kind. People think that's nothing to do with mental health. We're supposed to talk about bipolar and depression. What is be kind? That's a normal, you know, a tea book topic or whatever it is. that isn't a taboo topic. As much as you think it's small, that will actually make you feel better. When you hear these words, and it's something very simple, right? It's not a big thing, but we actually don't use it. We're all on edge. We're all upset. And that is what mental health is about. It's not only the scientific part, it's day-to-day reaction to things and feelings. And usually that's how I like to present mental health. So then everybody will feel, you know what, I'm going through it too, and it's fine. It's okay not to be okay, as we always read. But when we read these sentences, do we actually believe it, or is it just a sentence that we repeat? So I think now, with all of this going on, the best solution, live day by day. Honestly, I have no other magic potion. This is the only secret, which you all know about now. I'm going to give you the secret. Don't share it with everyone. This is for special outbound. You know what? Live day by day.
That's very good advice. Thank you. You said also it's a time of reflection, and it's a time that really, like you said, during COVID, everything sort of has come to a standstill. And it's a time that we reflect and go within even. And maybe that was one of the reasons as well that people started feeling anxious, because in our daily busy lives, we don't have the time to go within and really question and ask ourselves the questions we've been running away from or avoiding. So what would your advice be? You said invest in your mental health. So how would you invest in your mental health on a day-to-day? What are the small things? You say be kind, for example. Okay, that's you're right. Actually, even in Outward Bound, we're talking about cognitive behavior and how by having a positive attitude, you therefore have a positive feeling and therefore a positive thought, and the cycle continues. But how would you do it on a day-to-day? Where would you start?
So you know how you guys are also talking about resilience, which a lot of people talk about resilience, right? But when you guys talk about it, you talk about it because you deal with nature, right? So I'm going to come to that. But before that, I just want to say something about people feeling worried, as you said, oh, now, but they are going within. You know, so if they go within, now it's going to make them even more worried. There's a certain part that even when we go within, we just stop at a certain level. You know, God has taught us a lot of things. And one of the things that he's blessed us with, that he doesn't take us too much within. When you are going too much within and you're thinking too deeply into things, that's when you're not okay. So, for example, when we talk about Islam, when we go too deep within, then we start messing up. There's a certain level. Also, when I'm saying we don't affect ourselves so much and we take day by day, I don't mean we run away. I'm not saying we should run away. We need to deal with it, but day by day. When it comes to this lovely organization, and I'm sure they're missing a lot when it comes to nature. The whole idea about you guys is going out into nature in amazing big groups, doing lots of activities. And it reminds me, if I may share just 2 quick stories. I've always related nature to my grandmother's houses. It's very random. I'm going to explain why. Both grandmothers had gardens. So my granny in the UK had a garden, and my BBT, as we say it here, had a garden. Okay. For some reason, I would spend hours in a garden, and I would just lie down on the grass and I think I used to zone out. Because now, when I remember, and my mom says, you used to spend so many hours, what did you used to do? I told her I just used to see the tree, or I used to look at the plant. But if you ask me how that plant, the tree, kind of the leaf, I would actually tell you, I actually remember how it looked, how it smelled, how it was fun sitting in that garden. I saw snails, I saw lots of little things, and it was fine. When it comes to Amran, the same thing. I used to look at the trees, and it was my time. That was me time when I wanted to sing loud and I didn't want anyone to hear me in case they jinx my amazing voice. So I would sing in the garden, or I would look at things. And I think I was being mindful. I think at that age, I was actually mindful. And that made me, even if there was anything, so my parents weren't here, they were always traveling. And that used to make me feel sad. But I think relating things to nature, working with nature, being in the outdoor. I used to love going to the sea a lot. I think these things actually made me feel good. So I do see that that would be an issue, especially with these lockdowns all the time. But also, it's giving us something to look forward to. Why should we just look at the negative part? Why can't I say, oh my God, you know what I'm going to do when I'm going to do A, B, C, and D. I'm going to go with Anissa. I'm going to go to some Alaska cold something, climb, whatever, and do something like that. Even though it's something I'm not sure I'm going to, but it's keeping me, alive. Mental health isn't a taboo topic when it comes to making it simple, making it something I understand, not complicating it. And that is the biggest message I want to send today. Don't complicate it. It's already complicated. Mental health is not an easy thing, but make it feel like it's the norm. I'm not talking about people who are very not well, of course. Even them with good medication and with, therapists and all that, it will work out. You need help. That's something else you need to remember. It's not, oh my God, they're going to think I'm on another level. They're going to talk about me. They'll talk about you today and tomorrow, and then they'll talk about someone else. You will be stuck. So first of all, live day by day. Second of all, make it a bit more simple so you can deal with it. Third of all, maybe it's the most important thing, seek help. Don't just come to these, forums and talks and just listen and then go. Take something from what we're saying today. It will help you. From experience, I say this. Today, I'm going to take something from here. It could be anything, but take something.
Yeah, that's thank you for that. And like you linked it as well to the outdoors. With us at Outward Bound as well, it's very much linked to the outdoors. In fact, you were saying that we would be struggling right now with not being able to go outdoors. For me personally, it is a massive struggle. But also what I've noticed is that now that after they lifted the lockdown for a while, and you see more and more people in the outdoors, more so than before even, Jabal Akhtar is packed, and it's possibly why they've started lockdown again. But
yes.
But I think a lot of people realize this, that in the outdoors, there is healing in the outdoors, and you did from a very young age. Which brings us, Sayyidah Basma, is there anything else you would like to add?
Isn't it interesting that as Omanis, when it was in the summer, we didn't used to go much to the beach. Not that much. I mean, we'd go, but not that much. Isn't it interesting that in the summer, we would be traveling and saying, there's nowhere to go in Oman. It's very boring. Isn't it interesting? All of us are in Jabal Akhtar, even though we said there is no facilities. You know why? Because we adapt. Humans adapt. From all the species, God has made humans adapt. I wish and I hope, for the sake of all of us, and I say this to everyone around the world, I know this has hit all of us, please take care of yourself, because when you don't take care of yourself, you're infecting others. It's so simple. We've seen it. We're getting locked down now. Now we can't go to the beach. It's because of you and you and you who didn't put on a mask. Something very easy. So again, this links to being kind, caring for others. This makes your immunity go up. But being selfish, all of that, that's nothing to do with mental health. That has nothing to do with mental health. That is you. It's your personality. So change it. Like we were able to adapt, and we are going to, we're adapting as much as we can. We're going to, inshallah, be able to get over this. I don't know. I can't say what over this is. I just know there must be something we're getting over, inshallah. Right now, I personally don't see that log in the sea, sometimes you're swimming, you're like, I'm going to drown. You see a kind of log. I don't see it, but I do believe in faith and hope. And that's the only power. And look at us. We're adapting. Who said that we could do things like this? Very easily. You just sit at home and you put on the screen, you put on a ring light or whatever, and you're talking. But we are missing that personal touch, that warmth. And that's how humans are. So stay blessed. Remember 10-10, 2020, time of COVID, and reflect on things that you should be thankful for, because there's a lot of things to be thankful for.
Thank you. Thank you for your words. So that's very good advice. Stay in the moment, stay focused. And it's like you said, every stroke is what matters. Sometimes you don't see the log. Sometimes you don't see your floater, whatever it is that would save your life, your lifesaver. But you take every stroke and with the faith that you will get there. So thank you, Dr. Basma.
Thank you. And you guys today gave me faith. It's been such a long day, I want to tell you.
Bless.
This is my third talk
busy with your workshop today.
But because it's a special day, I pushed myself. I'm like, be there.
Thank you so much for your time today.
And to be with these lovely people, I'm so eager to hear. Thank you so much. Bless
yes,
you.
Do stick around because next we've got
just put the camera off though, yeah?
Yeah, go on. So next we've got Joe Roberts, the CEO of the Wilderness Foundation. The Wilderness Foundation, the patron of which is Prince Harry. They work with young people, taking them into the outdoors, just as Dr. Basma already just touched upon, that the benefit of the outdoors. So let's go a bit more into that, and why is, Joe has about, 13 years of research behind her on why working in the outdoors is beneficial to mental health. So let's hear a little bit more. But before you do, Joe, we've got a video to introduce her. So I won't talk anymore. Here, watch the video.
Some believe the wilderness has the power to heal broken lives, broken minds.
Has life been tough?
Yeah.
Was it tough for a long time?
Quite a long time, yeah.
Dad gone away, never came back. Mum passed away.
I think just being out here, away from everything, like it takes your mind off everything.
Gilly, bring you a cup of tea?
No, I'm okay.
Jo is a firm believer in the power of the wild. Her organisation works with troubled young people. Most refer to her by social services or support agencies.
Gilly, are you not going to eat?
Gilly is here because of his struggle with mental health problems.
I think the wild is magic. The wilderness areas that we work in are so beautiful. The silence, the space, but they also bring awe and wonder. And for many, many people, their lives are grey and drab. And to put those kind of people on the edge of a mountain where you can just look forever, it's just awesome.
Jo, I'm told, has seen one of the biggest transformations over the time he's been on the project.
When Mum passed away, we all broke up. Different foster carers, different places.
It's not hard to understand why he struggled with anger.
Really tough.
Really tough.
But here he is, thrown onto the side of a mountain. He has to help those who are with him. He has to do things he's never done before.
And he really decided that he didn't want to lead a life that wasn't working for him, which had aggression in it and which is always linked to pain. But he's made a choice to live differently, and that's the kind of work that we would like to kind of keep going. That
He looks
within
like
each
he's
of us,
doing so well.
he's the most amazing guy.
It is about the challenge of dealing with the wild. It is also about using all it has to offer.
I was homeless for like 2-3 years. I was having trouble with my mental illness.
What will you take away from all of this?
Just the surroundings, how like your mind just clears, like you don't even have to think.
I have OCD and I haven't thought about that since arriving here
Really?
at all. Yeah,
It's that
completely-
powerful.
Yeah, it's completely out of my mind for me, definitely.
Green care, wilderness therapy, terms which have slipped into public health policy over the last decade. But today, the local government association calls for far greater use of our natural resources to help heal.
I can't imagine how much you must have missed your mum.
Oh, I
And
still do.
Still do. She'd be so proud.
She will.
Yeah.
And I think there's something about the essence of people that comes out in wild places. You stop worrying about the things that don't matter anymore. Nature does that for us. In fact, we're just the midwives of the process. It's the wilderness that does it.
Wow. So we can see the emotions, the change over there in the participants, and we see that at Outward Bound with every course that we go on as well. So that was very heartwarming to see. Thank you, Jo, for being with us today. So Jo's worked with hundreds, if not maybe thousands, of young people over the last few years. She's started with the Wilderness Foundation, 98, so that's been a few years already, but before that in South Africa, already working with people in challenging situations in their lives, but helping them see the light at the end of the tunnel. So a lot of experience under her belt. But first tell us, Jo, a little bit more about the Wilderness Foundation. What exactly is it that you do?
Oh, thanks, Anisha. So we're a charity in the UK, but we were founded in South Africa originally in 1956. Starting to feel very old, having hung around for a long time, but I wasn't there in 1956, just to quickly put that in. But it started really about the power of taking people into wilderness, very much for around an environmental purpose. That actually the founder, Dr. Ian Player, believed that if people had the experience of a primitive connection with wild nature, it would give them that boost to want to conserve wild spaces and wilderness, and it needed to come from an emotional connection, and the only way you got that emotional connection was the sleeping on the earth and the taking water from the river, and also developing that sort of more spiritual connection with nature and just a sense of attachment and belonging and being. So it was a very powerful environmental program. But what started to happen is they saw what actually happened to people on an emotional, personal level around being in wilderness, and how people started to say how much better they felt themselves coming out of that wilderness trail experience. And so in the UK, we were founded in the early days with a very sort of great pedigree of people who were involved in 1976. You know, Duke of Wellington and a whole lot of great names in the UK. And the idea was to try and get people from the UK to go to Africa on these wilderness journeys. And those wilderness journeys, which I've done many of now, they take you to your rawest part of your soul. You're sleeping without tents. You're sleeping under the myriad of African stars around a small campfire at night. You've got no tent. You are just with your backpack and everything that you need with you for 5 days and nothing else. And you've got lions and you've got elephants and you've got leopard and rhino and all the big animals that exist around you. And so one by one at night, you do your night watch by the fire and you look after the rest of the people with you. So it's an incredibly raw experience and a very primitive experience of coming back to what fear really is as a human being in a big wild world. So once we got going in the UK, we started to take people out on trail to South Africa. And when I got involved in 1998, I started to really question why we only took people to Africa. And I felt very strongly that we needed to help people find a connection with their own backyard. I am an African, but I'd been living in Europe by then for some time. And it was this kind of sense that we need people to connect to what's on their doorstep. We need people to actually find that wilderness of spirit and a feeling of connection closer to home sometimes, as well as the bigger connection of being far away. So from those early days in 98, started to work very closely with young people and to try and itself. And started to look at a whole range of different activities and wilderness journeys across Scotland and Wales. And then that has gradually taken us into the mountains of Poland, looking across the Ukraine, and the joy of coming with your team in the Omani desert, which was one of my I will always go to my grave one day, having just that memory of being in Oman. It was an extraordinary experience for me. But, you know, I think that we've now evolved from only thinking environment to then really starting to say, if we look after nature, nature will look after us. And we've started to move into the mental health world over the last sort of 13, 14 years, and actually started to explore more what actually happened to people in wild nature. Why did people feel better? What was happening in their brains? What was happening in their souls? What was actually happening to them physically? What were the changes of an embodiment that took place with people in a wild space? And so I started to work more and more with youth at risk, really troubled young kids in the UK. We are having some extreme issues, and Dr. Basma always makes me have to think, am I being so negative? Am I going to be more positive? But we see some really challenging social issues that we're dealing with at the moment, around gangs and around drug dealing and around family breakdown. I mean, I read a statistic just to share with you in a way something that we're dealing with. Now, if I can only find my piece of paper. So it said in the UK at the moment, young people, in an average classroom of around 30 children, 10 of those children would have seen their parents separate. In the average classroom, 8 of those young people would have suffered from severe physical violence, sexual abuse, or neglect. Of those 30 children, 1 of them would have had a death of a parent. Of that, 7 would have been bullied in class or at school. And we know that half of all the mental health issues that take place in adulthood started before you were 15 years old. And by the time you were 18, 75% of all mental health problems would have already started to manifest. So we're working with that fragile age group where if we can make a difference with them now and actually get them resilient, more able to cope with their emotions, more able to communicate what they're feeling, more able to feel attached to something, which we try and attach to the ecological environment, to themselves and to others, and more able to be vulnerable and not be ashamed of vulnerability. If we can work with all of those factors, which that wilderness trail you saw in the video gives you all of those outcomes, we're then on to something. And our research has also been looking really significantly into how long does this last? What is the wilderness effect? Can we actually see change that can last and be embedded? So we've been doing research follow-up 3 years after our young people come out of our wilderness programs, where they'll do 2 wilderness trails and a lot of nature-based immersion. And we now can see that when they come out 3 years later and we re-research and interview them, they all talk about the wilderness trail as being the most significant change for themselves. And the stories of being able to find, that word self-efficacy, the time I was able to care for myself, the time I stepped into a challenging situation, I got control of myself and I came out the other side. And now I know I can do it. Now I know I can't say can't anymore because I can. All of this narrative is being researched 3 years after the wilderness journeys, and that same language is existing. So I've gone a long way around of saying we work extensively in nature. We're working extensively with highly, highly challenged young people, but we also know from neuroscience, we know from our own research over these 13 years, which has been peer-reviewed academic studies. We know from the children whose hearts have touched us. I mean, every time I watch that video, I want to cry because I loved those kids we worked with. I watched them flourish from incredible disadvantage to incredible personal advantage. And I know that it works. And I know that it works because I've watched it work day in, day out. And sometimes it takes longer for some than others, but it always works. There's something magical that happens in a wild place that enables somebody to get a sense of something different to what they've been experiencing before. And now we know that it doesn't go away. And I think that resilience of experience and knowing that it sticks is probably one of the most profound outcomes that we can hope for. Sorry, was that very long?
No, that's great. That's great. I suppose what it does is open up the possibility for them to realize that, okay, I am capable of more, exactly like what our Outward Bound motto is. Once you realize what you're capable of, you don't want to take that step back again. So that's amazing, the work you've done. But I was wondering, how do you, because you said you've worked with a lot of people from troubled backgrounds and how would you get the initial conviction? How would you get them outdoors? Get them, like you said, they need to understand more about the outdoors before they can build that love and respect for it, and give before they can get from the outdoors as well. So how do you build that with them? How long are your programs, and how would you do it? What's the transition? I'm interested when you get someone on day one, and I imagine a lot of them don't even want to be there. How do you work with that?
Well, we've had some, that not everybody sticks. I'm just laughing to myself quietly because I've got what they call a lot of black humor. You've got to see the funny side sometimes in this work, because you do get some funny moments. I had a young woman of 15 join us a little while ago, and she arrived in a little tiny crop top and beautiful white trainers, and it was a wet, muddy day in England. And I was thinking, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work. I think she lasted about 5 minutes, and she said, F this. I thought I was coming to do science and English indoors, and she was gone like the wind. So it doesn't always work. But I would say that 90% of the time it works. Most of the time it works. And I think it's down to the facilitation of the team that I work with. So we are very interested in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, particularly when you've got a rubbish climate sometimes to deal with. We believe in keeping people warm and feeling cared for and nurtured. We're very gentle. We're very silly and funny. We kind of treat people from a completely human to human level with respect and kindness. And I think a lot of the young people who come to us have not had that way of being treated.
Right.
So we warm them up slowly. And, even in a 6-week program that we run for 13 to 15-year-olds, I'm just thinking we had a group of 13 boys who was so challenging. We were all kind of having to go and take a lot of deep breaths behind, a tree somewhere just to get our strength back up at times, because there was a lot of gangs and a lot of drug dealing, and they were very challenging. They didn't want to go home at the end of week 6. Can we stay longer? Is it possible to do more? Because I think there was something about working in beautiful woodland, and we know that all the effect of fractal patterns and attention restoration therapy and Ulrich's work on the brain, on the neocortex, we know all of that stuff was happening anyway. But what was also happening is we were creating a highly functioning social system where people all felt part of something and they were contributing to that being good, and that felt good. And I think they didn't want to leave us because we could create an environment that they were part of that felt good and safe and kind, and all the things we hope for in society were kind of happening within that group. So and then other programs will take a year. Other programs we run take 6 to 9 months, and the worst bit that makes me the saddest is the funding that we sometimes are limited with one-to-one therapy outdoors. We'll only see a client for 6 sessions because that's the only money we've got to run it. But even in those 6 sessions, we see a lot of change. But I think it needs a minimum of about 12 sessions to really, really soak in. It's like you can have a very hard rain that rushes off the soil and doesn't soak in, and you can have a soft rain that goes right through to where it needs to go. And I think 12 weeks is like soft rain.
Yeah. And like you say, it's taken years to build up, so it can't be in 1 or 2 sessions that it all just washes away. No. It would take some soft rain. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. So a lot of research that you've done on the effects of this in the outdoors as well. So I would love to see some of that as well later, if you would be so kind as to share. But tell me on this research, you must have heard what we've been doing with Outward Bound is just like you calling up our past participants and seeing, does this actually have a positive impact in the long run? Could you share just one story that comes to mind of a positive story where years later you've spoken to a participant who's been with you, and what was the outcome or the impact for them personally?
Gosh. We've got some wonderful stories, and I think success lies in the person, and success is relative. So for me, success can be a very dysfunctional young woman who ends up being a wonderful mother, and that to me is like massive success. But in terms of the kind of real kind of, you know, shiny lights of success, I'm just thinking of a young girl, Charlotte, who's very happy to tell her story publicly, so I'm not actually in any way breaking her confidence. She came to us and said she was basically almost dead. In her first meetings with us, you could not hear her voice. She whispered. She had such chronic self-harm that she had really massacred her body physically. She couldn't understand where this came from. And I think there's still some work to try and keep digging into the early trauma, which is very hard to identify. She then came on our 6-week program. She then went on to our 6-month program. And she has just started university down in Bournemouth doing art and photography. She is an ambassador. She's a public speaker. She takes on other young people and supports them. She has a voice. She is somebody who has, I think, through being treated with the humanity that she gets from us and from the kind of network she's now started to move in, has discovered that she is an extraordinary, beautiful, brave, dynamic young woman who's capable of just taking on the world. And she's dancing and singing and sharing and talking and helping. And to see her go to university, which I think when we first met her, she couldn't even open her mouth, is just magic. So she's one of my heroines of the world. She's seriously overcome her challenges. And she accepts she'll still have them from time to time. And that, to me,
that's important.
I'm sure Dr. Basma will agree, that's the point. She realizes that our mental health is like the sea. It goes up and down, and we just have to learn to sail on it. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, exactly right. It just ebbs and flows. And what's key is, like you said, the support system that you have around you and what you make of it, the mental strength that you have to bear with it day in, day out, really. So thank you. Yes, sir, go on.
No, I was just going to say one thing, that I've been watching David Attenborough and getting so emotional about the planet. So we've actually just decided that we've already been doing quite a lot of nature conservation within our mental health programs, but I have now made an absolute commitment to the earth, and that is that we're dealing with young people who maybe come to us with a broken wing. And we've also got a broken planet, and we're going to fix broken wings and broken planets. So all of our young people are getting involved in conservation volunteering as part of that giving back and learning to be generous and to move. So we've just got this whole new mission on our plates. And I'm convinced that by actually helping the earth heal, it's going to be also helping people heal.
That's a brilliant idea.
So
like you said, the more you are involved with your positive attitude, with your positive behavior, it comes back to your positive feeling good about yourself, and so the cycle continues. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Which brings us over to any final words, Joe, before we move on to our next speaker?
No, but thank you so much for including me, and thank you for having my time in Oman. It was very special.
Thank you. It was very special to us, and honestly learned a lot from you. So we will be in touch. But please do stick around, because we have some Q&As possibly at the end. So our next speaker, we've got Yu'thar al-Rawahi. Yu'thar is a vast array of, she's been involved with the Oman Cancer Association. We know her mostly for, but also Dar al-Hanan, the annual walkathon that happens every year, and also the palliative care, the brainchild behind that. But if this isn't enough, she's also got 5 children and 8 grandchildren, so a lot on her plate. But juggling all of this and then having cancer 4 times and surviving it on her own. So she's got a story to share, a very big story. So please, Yu'thar, I won't take any more time. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Anisa. It's wonderful to listen. Joe, I'm in awe what you have achieved. Really, it's wonderful. Carry on the good work. First of all, I want to thank Sayyidah Basma. I want you to bear with me, because I have written something down. So it might be boring, but I'll rather write something down and read it out. I don't want to miss anything out. I hope you find it interesting. Now, let me start by saying I'm not a clinician, a medical professional. I'm just someone who went through the healing process 4 times. And I'm still on the healing journey. As a result of my experience, I'm a believer in the real link between good mental health and healing. Healing is a holistic process, or at least it should be, from diagnosis to going through treatment and hopefully becoming a survivor. With cancer, I find the journey doesn't start at diagnosis, it's actually before. Some people know something is not right, but they are reluctant to go and investigate because they are paralyzed by either fear or denial. The mental battle they go through at this stage before even receiving any news, either confirming their fears or potentially putting them at ease, is something real. Knowing how to navigate this stage is just as important, if not more so, than the other stages. It has significant consequences the longer one waits. Ignorance breeds fear and uncertainty. Your mental state can be compromised by fear. For me, when I was first diagnosed in 1998, I lived through that to a certain extent, and it affected my mental state of mind. I was worried for my young children. What would they do without me? I was worried about my elderly parents, how they will deal with the news. By the time of my 4th diagnosis, the reception of the news, you have cancer again, was being absorbed by someone who has built up my mental muscle. So I know from personal experience that the healing process was smoother as a result of this strengthened mental state. Now, as a patient, that's a whole other kettle of fish. With its own ups and downs, the pain and trauma treatment is not easy, whether you are suffering from a broken bone or battling stage 4 cancer. How you cope as a patient is affected by the quality of your mental health. A defeatist attitude can get you through, maybe, but what about a positive, optimistic attitude? Obviously, they are not the same stories. Not only are you dealing with your own relationship with the pain, it's masking the pain some days to spare their feelings when they ask, how are you feeling today? Having specific counseling as a patient alone or with a primary caregiver, or just being able to speak to someone honestly without the baggage of filtering yourself can help you tremendously. This counseling is so immensely important to the healing process because it specifically targets and caters to your mental well-being and health. It is a real lived experience. The patient don't want to worry their loved ones. If you're bottling all this up, it doesn't help. So getting it out of your system helps the patient and their loved ones. Mental care should be a vital part of any treatment plan. This should be non-negotiable. If we move on from the intensity of patienthood and graduate to becoming a survivor, that too has its own particular needs. Contending with the regular checkups, the fear leading up to those appointments plays on our mind. Knowing how to shore up your mental defenses help you to cope. You really need to sustain your mental health like you exercise your muscles. Like Anisa and Saida Basma mentioned, you just at some point sit with yourself and know what to say to get yourself out of the troubling spot and be able to carry on and not spiral out of control. I ask myself often, what can you do to attain good mental health? Yoga, prayer helped me a lot. This is a spiritual element, unique to each person. Meditation, exercising. It could be walking on the beach, connecting with nature, as Joe was saying. Whatever works for you, you alone knows what breaks you down mentally and what builds you up. I encourage taking the time to learn these things about yourself and self-reflect to maintain a healthy mental balance. When life is rosy and fine, and when challenges arrive, you should actively avoid the things that break down your mental state or negatively affect it. And do more of the exercises and activities that increase your mental well-being. Your mental health is just as important, not more than your physical health. We don't hear that enough. Just as we normalize going to the doctor for a cold or broken bone, seeking assistance for your mental state from a therapist or counselor should be just as normal. Shaming or hiding the need for assistance is terrible, especially if you are the one judging yourself. Some people seem to require little help. Others need much more support. When you're healing or in a situation that requires a healthy, not necessarily positive, but healthy and resilient state of mind, having whatever tools available at your disposal is important. I want to reiterate, this is my own personal experience. In the conclusion I have reached, going through healing myself and engaging hundreds of women and men over the past 20 plus years. It's okay to break down mentally. It's even natural. Recognizing that you have suffered a mental episode and knowing how to pick yourself up or where to go to seek help in recovering is so vital to healing. Sometimes you can sleep and find yourself overwhelmed by worry. That's okay, that's natural. How can you expect people to overcome if they themselves don't know or understand that it's okay to seek help to heal? Mind over matter is a phrase that has a lot of truth. The mind is a powerful organ, subhanallah. It does have healing powers. If you have this super weapon at your disposal, doesn't it only make sense to ensure it is in good working order? It is comfortable, it is calm, it is functioning, it is optimal capacity for you and not working against you. Controlling your mental state needs to be taught, and we are lucky to have entities who can guide you through difficult situations. The work Saida Basma is doing is really commendable, and the service so very important to society as a whole. Something like COVID-19 has brought to light how important it is to appreciate the role mental health plays in our daily lives. In these unprecedented times, we come to appreciate that having mental health professionals and structures in place to support communities' mental well-being is essential to the health of the society as a whole. Places with mature mental health infrastructure are better able to cope with these unprecedented challenges. So thank you for providing a platform to discuss these complex matters and raise awareness around their importance. Normalizing, talking about it, inshallah, will go a long way in destigmatizing it. Thank you. So really what everybody has been discussing, I think Anissa, you'll agree, is mental health depends on individual person. Like Jo was saying, she has different people. I mean, the children who have passed through her training, it's remarkable how by just moving them to a different environment can help the mental state.
And everyone, exactly like you said, and everybody's coping mechanism is also different. For some, it could be nature. For some, like you said, it's really just mind over matter and controlling your own actions or reactions every day. So thank you so much, Yotha, for sharing your experience with us. And it really humbles me, actually, that hearing this from such a strong woman like yourself. And, you know, like you say, it shouldn't be a taboo, because we should, at whoever we are, face this in some form at some point in our lives. So thank you for normalizing it.
Thank you.
Which brings us to our final speaker for the day, Ed Parker. Ed Parker is the CEO of Walking with the Wounded, joining us from the UK. Thank you, Ed, for being patient.
My pleasure. Well, it's been very humbling listening to the stories that we've had so far this evening, and I feel rather a fraud now, jumping on following those very, very powerful stories and the steps that are being put in place by people for mental health. I, as you said, I run a military charity. We provide care for veterans and their families. And principally, we are focused on those with the most complex needs. clearly within that, mental health is a big issue. And those who have served have a very similar mental health profile to the whole of the public in the UK. We have to be very careful about projecting veterans as being different in terms of their mental health. But as you would understand, many of us have seen some really relatively traumatic things during our service, and sometimes that will manifest itself into trauma-related mental ill health. Something else that's very important from the profile of those that we support is that the British military does recruit from some of the lower socioeconomic groups within the UK, and historically mental health within those groups is worse than others. And so many of those that we are dealing with had mental ill health prior to joining the military. The military provided a relatively safe environment. It's a very institutional environment. It's a very easy environment to predict how one lives. And then they live and they go back into those lower socioeconomic groups from where they came originally. And at that point, mental health issues manifest themselves. We treat our cohorts with our own mental health program, which is partnering with the National Health Service in the UK. We also put a lot of emphasis on employment because, as I'm sure you're all aware, employment is an extremely important element of your mental health, as is family. And then the third element of what we do, we call care coordination, because there are very, very few of our beneficiaries who have a single complex issue which needs addressing. Mental health is very, very rarely a singular issue. We are dealing with alcoholism, with debt issues, with family issues, with accommodation issues, with job issues. And so our care coordinators provide a holistic journey for our beneficiaries to ensure that the whole self is cared for. One of the things that's becoming increasingly evident, and certainly listening to what you've all been saying specifically, and particularly Joe earlier, is wellness and well-being is becoming far more understood. And it's not a question of just treating mental ill health with pills and with therapy. It's about the whole person. It's about the environment which that person is in. And in the UK, one of the areas that we're very, very interested in, and we're working with specifically with the mental health, with the NHS, is around social prescription. And it's an area that we're looking to grow significantly because it does provide purpose and it does identify where the worth of the individual is. And so it's somewhere that is, I don't think, fully understood yet. There's a lot of growth in this wellness piece. But I do think it's something that we are seeing very, very significant success on with the cohort that we're working with. We support roughly 3,000 people a year, as I said, all veterans and family members, and that is growing. And as a result of COVID, we've seen quite a significant increase to the demand for our services. So that's what we do on a day-to-day basis. In order to highlight our work, what we have historically done is a series of high-profile expeditions. We take a team off. We've been to the North Pole, we've been to the South Pole, we've been up Everest, we've walked 1,000 miles around the UK, we've walked across America, taking with us small groups of veterans who have had mental ill health and physical issues. And it allows us to create a platform whereby they can tell the story from whence they've come and how they've overcome adversity, how they've overcome their injury. This year is our 10th anniversary. We were meant to be having many events to celebrate our 10th year. Sadly, COVID has put an end to that. And at the end of this year, the plan was to come to Oman and do another one of our expeditions. We've recently just slipped it. We will be doing it in February of next year. And a team of 6 British wounded will be joined by some Omani servicemen. And we'll be walking 400 kilometers across the Omani desert coming through the bottom of the empty quarter. And the reason for doing this is so we can storytell about the men and women who have served and what they've overcome. It is also a wonderful opportunity for us to highlight the partnership we have with the Omani Armed Forces. There's a very close relationship between the UK military and the Omani Armed Forces, but also equally importantly, the close relationship that Britain and Oman has. So we're disappointed we've had to delay it a few months, but we will be coming. We're doing a lot of our consultation around this with Attan Oman, which has been fantastic. Their knowledge and advice is something that we really do thank you for. And so that's, I still feel I'm last and least on this occasion, but thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for being with us, Edward. It's very interesting to hear all sides of the story now, really. So, mental health is not only for a certain genre of people or a certain spectrum or a certain age group, like we say, but it's for everybody and just as important for everybody. So thank you for your initiatives, and very exciting to hear about Walking with the Wounded coming here to Oman. Not a surprise for us with Outward Bound, as we have been working with you, but for all of those listening, Walking with the Wounded will be here in February, so definitely something to follow. All across the desert, 6 veterans, an adventure of its kind, but again, watching how this will help them overcome their own personal struggles by using challenges in the outdoors. So thank you everyone for joining us, but before we leave, we have been talking about mental health over here, and we've got a lot of advocates over here for just that. So our speakers, I would like to thank you. The experience we gained from hearing your story and your talk, very inspiring. Joe, I'm just going down the screen. Joe, the stories of you with the young people you've worked with, but more importantly, the impact that it has had being in the outdoors and working closely with nature. Dr. Basma and the intensive work that she has done over here in Oman. So we know there's ways to reach out if you are looking for help over here in Oman as well, but nonetheless also in the UK. So thank you all for listening, but before we go on, I just want to add one more thing. So at Outward Bound also over the last months with the lockdown and with COVID going on, we have had the time to really scratch our heads and have a think about what we can do to tackle this issue of mental health, but really being locked indoors for so long, and what is it that you need to build your mental resilience. So a short video over here, just to share with you on our Build Your Resilience courses.
هذا سالم يعيش مع عائلة مكونة من 4 أخوان وأختين. يطلع مع ربعه كل أسبوع مرة، يداوم ويحاول يوصل الدوام من وقت. طبعا ما دايما ينجح. سالم يحب يشرب قهوة ويركض في الشاطئ وقت العصر ويروح الجيم. يعني حياة طبيعية وحافلة لشاب عشريني. أو بلا صح كانت حياة طبيعية وحافلة قبل ما يجي كورونا ويقلب كل الموازين. سالم جلس في البيت 2 ولا يمكن 3، ما يتذكر. اللي يتذكره صار عبارة عن إحصائيات الإصابة وأرقام الوفيات والأخبار المقلقة اللي تجي حتى لو ما بغاها تجي. طبعا كل هذا ما مر فيه سالم وحده، كلنا مرينا فيه بطريقة وثانية. بس سالم بدأ يتساءل إذا كان كل الناس صاروا يحسوا بنفس الأحاسيس اللي عنده، الأحاسيس اللي ما عارف إيش يسميها، ولكنها بكل تأكيد ما أحاسيس حلوة.
العالم ككل والسلطنة تواجه العديد من التحديات بسبب جائحة فيروس كورونا أو كوفيد 19. ففي تحدي عمان صممنا برنامج الصمود، وهذا البرنامج يختص بمساعدة الشباب العمانيين على كيفية التغلب على التحديات في فترة الحجر المنزلي. ومن ضمن هذه التحديات اللي يواجهها الشباب العمانيين التحديات النفسية أو كيفية استغلال الوقت أثناء فترة الحجر المنزلي.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. معاكم سكينة الحداد من مؤسسة تحدي عمان أو Outward Bound عمان. حبيت أكلمكم اليوم عن دورتنا الجديدة اللي بتكون حول موضوع الصمود. هذه الدورة بتكون مخصصة لفئة الشباب اللي مروا من صعوبات وضغوطات نفسية بسبب العزل الاجتماعي أو الحجر الصحي. هذه الدورة بتكون مكونة من أو بتكون مدتها يومين، وسوف نقدمها في مركزنا الجديد في الخوض السادسة. نتمنى أن كلكم تشاركوا معنا في هذه الدورة، لأن فعلا كل حد ممكن يستفيد منها. نحن قضينا الأسابيع الماضية في تطوير وتأهيل جميع مدربين حتى يكونوا قادرين انهم يقدموا الدعم اللازم للمشاركين اللي بيكونوا معنا ان شاء الله.
مرحبا، معكم المدرب عبد الرحمن. حبيت اكلمكم اليوم عن تجربتي في تقديم دورات الصحة النفسية في مؤسستنا اللي هي مؤسسة Outward Bound عمان. من خلال هذه الدورات اتضحت لي أهمية الدعم المعنوي لمختلف أفراد المجتمع، وشهدت على التأثير النفسي لبعض المشاركين من حيث فهم مشاكلهم أو التقرب من حلها أو التصالح مع الذات.
I'm very thankful and appreciative of really being part of this training or course. I did not know what to expect, but I was really amazed by the syllabus or whatever we've gone through in the course. And the instructors, it is an international standard, and I do recommend everyone to really come into this course and participate. Thank you.
I would like to take the moment to say a big thank you to Outward Bound Oman because I really didn't know what to expect. I was kind of expecting it more to be professional in terms of work life. However, when I did come and try it out, I was very happy to see that it's a lot about self-value and self-love, and to basically overcome whatever your past is to make a better future for yourself. So I am extremely happy with what they brought to the table. And I actually came by, I didn't even know about it. I didn't even know about the course. I came through my sister who put me in this course, and I am extremely happy, and I think I'll be doing a lot more with Outward Bound Oman. Yeah, I want to repeat that.
So thank you everyone for joining us today. Just to summarize, that was one of the solutions. There are many solutions. It's a support that you have around you. It's your attitude that you have, your mindset that you wish to select every day when you wake up, and how you will tackle this day. So thank you for all of our speakers. Thank you for our listeners. But now listeners, this is where you get involved. We will have a little Q&A session before we sign out. So if anybody has any questions for our speakers, please feel free to type it out. I will select your questions and address them to the speakers. We still have everybody in here. I think people are still a little shy after we opened up our hearts. And come on, any questions on the topic, mental health? Any questions from the speakers? Go on, مختار.
أيوة.
عندك سؤال؟ نعم مختار، عندك سؤال للمجموعة؟
لا شكرا أحسنتم.
شكرا. We have a question here actually for Ed. Ed, what was the biggest obstacles to introducing your services?
Wow. What were the biggest obstacles? I think governance, ensuring that we had appropriate governance, because we work very closely with the NHS. You know, they're the universal health provider in the UK, and I think it's wrong to try and replicate their services. You know, we should be using that service. So, in order to work alongside them, you have to have a very, very high standard, quite rightly, of governance. And as in those days we were relatively small. The time and the cost of implementing both clinical and operational governance was challenging. But actually now, as a result of the time that we took and the heartache that we went through doing it, we now find ourselves in a much better position to be able to be reactive and to continue to grow.
Great, thank you. So we had a question because someone was actually interested in wondering how to replicate the same sort of concept over here. We do have another question from Nihal. She says, thank you for the talk. My question is, and this could be Ed to you or anybody who's happy to answer, what is the proper way to handle the negative thoughts? So you say waking up and having the right mindset, but really, how do you switch on this mindset? How do you handle these negative thoughts, I suppose, is her question.
I mean, I can add something to that if you want. I think, you know, people really sometimes feel that they need tools that they can practically use. And I think that's kind of where the question's coming from as well. And I think one of the positive tools that you can do is to sometimes sit down with a piece of paper and actually write down all the things you've been grateful for that day, even if it's been a really rubbish day. There's a lot of evidence that the more we can actually try and remind ourselves about the things we're grateful for, it actually starts to change your whole mood and some of your neurology, and it's actually proven to really help. So it's not just a kind of a fun thing to do, it's got some real scientific evidence behind it. So that is one thing that you can do to start to change your mood and your mind.
I would add to that a bit, if that's okay. Sorry, I have the camera off for certain reasons, but anyhow, I think what we do is we try and run away from negative thoughts. Like we don't deal with them. Like we run away from them. We don't want to deal with them, but dealing with them and seeing where does it come from is something important, because up till when are you going to run away from them? I always tell my clients, imagine it's a game of squash. So if it hits you with the negative, you try and hit it back with a positive, and you just continuously do that. And in the end, your brain gets trained. So it's like you're training your brain to think differently. It takes time. It's not easy, but it really does work. And sometimes this might sound very odd, but it's okay to have some negative thoughts. Life is not all 100% positive. Actually, when you have some negative thoughts, it inspires you to look for positive thoughts in a way. Imagine if everything was happy and positive all the time. All the time. You're like flying and butterflies. We would, of course, that's something we aspire to, but it's not real. It doesn't happen in real life. There's a day that will be this way and another day that will change. So we just need to actually deal with it. And 100% also what Joe said. Thank you for that, Joe.
Yeah, thank you both for your advice. That's brilliant advice. It's just how to deal with it. And it's okay if I have a little bit of a cry once in a while, no matter who you are. We've got a question for Yasser. What is the biggest challenge facing Omani cancer patients today? And has the taboo been lifted sufficiently by now? Or do you think it's still a barrier? You're on mute.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Well, when we started in 2000, it was a complete taboo. Now, 2020, coming up, people are talking about it. People are accepting it as a disease instead of just calling it that disease, not even mentioning the name. So we've come a long way. We have a lot to do. People are still afraid of the disease. They're associated with the death sentence, unfortunately, which is sad. But with the work we have done at the Oman Cancer Association, awareness and of course prevention, and telling people like this is like any other disease and you can overcome it. And as we've been discussing the whole evening today, the brain is a wonderful tool, and we should use it properly. We should not let it wander into fantasies and things that you think that you can't deal with. Don't be afraid of it. You can change the way you feel and everything through just accepting that this is bound to happen. You accept it, and you tell yourself that I'm going to overcome it and I'm going to fight it, and inshallah it will be better, instead of just giving up and not having any hope.
Brilliant. You've just answered two questions, Yother. Thank you very much, because your second question was, in your personal journey, when you went through this, I mean, everybody, it's easy to say over here, sitting here, it's don't give up hope. But I'm sure you've had those days waking up in the morning when, I mean, probably by the third time you had to face cancer. Just, you know, what is it that kept pushing you? What is the thought?
Yes, you know, by my fourth cancer, I thought, but I think because my mind, I've trained my mind like to accept this disease, it wasn't very difficult by my fourth cancer. My first cancer, definitely.
It was a shock.
It was a shock. Why me? And I've asked myself a lot. I have tried, you know, so many times when I was setting up the Oman Cancer Association, I wanted to give up. I can't cope with this. We didn't have funds. People were not accepting the disease. But if you just, and if you believe in something, believe that you're going to get better, believe that this is going to be over, and I'm going to be well, then it will happen. I believe in that.
Great, thank you. Thank you for your advice and for giving us all inspiration. You're a hero, Maha says. So thank you, everyone. I think we have no more questions. I will give you a couple of seconds if anyone wants to have some final questions while we say our goodbyes. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Final words is that look for your support system, be it whispers of serenity, be it listening to inspirational stories of real people around you like Yother, be it going into the outdoors, whether you are a veteran, whether you are a young person, it doesn't matter. There is healing in nature. Find whatever solution works for you, but work on it day to day to make yourself a happier, healthier person. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others. And before we've got one more question now. That's the final one, and we'll close it for the night. Do you find the youth of Oman are more open to counseling now? Sayyida Basma, this would be for you.
I answered her there. I do see that they're open to counseling. I also see that they see it as a priority, actually. Some people, it's funny, they think it's cool to go to a counselor. Some people come to us and teach us how to be counselors, but that's something else completely. But something like this, I mean, your majority are youth in Outbound Oman, and look what you're doing. I mean, you're supporting it and things like this. I think making it creative and the new cool thing is making it work. Of course, COVID-19 has been a big help now. And also when we see what Joe does as well, it's like, you don't feel it's the typical counseling, right? Because you think counseling is you sit down on a couch, on a shizlong, and you talk, knowing I do have that in my clinic, but that's what people think mostly. But it's a lot of things. This is counseling. This is therapy. I mean, listening to Ustadha Yother talk, listening to her journey, it makes me feel, oh my God, like, look what's happening. Look what a human can do. Look at her, we would call her a superhero, and probably she's thinking I'm not a superhero, but you are. I mean, I feel it. I personally, it's my choice and I think so, but it's a feeling and it makes you feel good. This feeling good is therapy. So you see, this is what I meant. When we talk about therapy and mental health, it's not always very dark. It's always a sad music and the violin and the man in the corner. And it's like, no, It's everything. This today is therapy. So yes, to answer that question again, the youth are very helpful. I actually love working with the youth. Last year, today, we were in Kempinski, and it was mental health for the youth. It was them from year 10 years old to 22. They were talking about everything. They took the lead. They did everything. So yes, it's a good support. And I'm thankful that the youth, because when they believe in something, that's when things really work properly.
Exactly, and like you say, the youth, and majority of the population in Oman here is the youth, so it is moving forward. Thank you very much for answering that question. Thank you everybody for joining us today, and with that, we will close the night. Thank you all for joining, and have a good night.
Thank you, Anisa.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, everybody. Have a blessed evening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.